All right, Student Fees Commission will come to order. Clerk Malone, will you please proceed with roll call?
When I call your name, please respond with here or present. Chairman Brand,
Here.
Vice Chair Thornton,
Present.
and Clerk Malone, I am here. Commissioner Van Dyke,
Present.
Commissioner Lesnick,
Here.
Commissioner McAllister,
Here.
Commissioner Mafume,
Present.
Commissioner Villa,
Present.
Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Palnetto,
Here.
Commissioner Webb,
Here.
Commissioner Bellozzi,
Present.
Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Fonseca,
Present.
Commissioner Hall,
Present.
Commissioner Galling,
Present.
Commissioner Surrender, Commissioner Post,
Here.
Commissioner Pletcher,
Present.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
All right. Mr. Chairman, 20 members are present. We have met quorum.
All right, thank you, Clerk Malone. Next item.
Discuss process, schedule, and expectations.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. There you go. Good morning. So just want to kind of go over the schedule for today so that you and the people who are watching on Zoom know, or on YouTube know what is happening. So after I'm done kind of going over the schedule, we'll provide an opportunity for folks to deliver an opening statement if you have any. If you don't, we'll skip over that and go into public forum. Same thing, if there's no one there, then we'll turn it over to the budget office, specifically with David Miller, to present our revenue estimates. This morning, we're going to hear from the College of Fine Arts and Student Health Services before we break for lunch. And then this afternoon, when we come back at 1:30, we'll hear from Prevention Services, Counseling Services, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Student Affairs Assessment and Retention, and then we'll end the day with Graduate School Programming, and then we'll have any announcements before we adjourn for the day. So that is the schedule for today. As a reminder, the book is yours, so feel free to make whatever marks or questions you need to put on there. In a second, Clerk Malone is going to go over how the procedures will work, and then we'll kind of move on from there. Are there any questions that I can help answer? The first 5 pages that you took out of your book and you got new ones, those are the updated schedule. The next 2 pages are the updated budget. You'll see that primarily tomorrow when we start playing around with numbers. At the bottom of that, you'll also see the total student fees requests that came in and a couple notes for you to pay attention to. And then the last 2 pages are the cash balances for the organizations, as well as some couple comments that are in the bottom there as well. So you'll have the new numbers there. I also added you to the student fees teams if you need to see it visually in front of you, including the presentations that are going to be given today. Those are in the teams folder as well. Are there any questions or comments or anything? Wonderful. Then I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner Fonseca. Clerk Malone, next item.
Revenue estimates.
All right, thank you. We'll now hear from David Miller, the University Budget Director. David, the floor is yours.
Well, hi and good morning. So my name is David Miller. I'm the budget director here at the university, and what I wanted to do today is give you guys kind of a presentation on some kind of general information that we all should know as we work through this process. But before I start jumping into these slides, I just want to recognize Lindsay Pletcher, who's really the one who's been doing all the heavy lifting on this process. So very grateful for her, and also Jason Post in the budget office. So with that said, your guys' budget last year totaled almost $10 million, and you can kind of see the breakdown there between the EOF fund and then the student operations. Even though that makes up a little tiny sliver of the university's total budget of about $600 million, the things that you fund are so important to the culture and creating a welcoming atmosphere for students here on campus. It's really valuable, the work that you guys put into this, so thank you for doing that. Just kind of the timeline that we usually go through on this every year. This process actually starts off in December. Lindsay sends out a call for any funding requests that might come before the Student Fees Committee. And she also does a training in mid-January for anyone who might be looking to do a request and hasn't done it before, and so they need a little training to understand how it all works. In early February, those requests come back in. She works on putting together this wonderful binder that you all have today and getting that distributed to you along with your guys' help. And here we are in March for the committee hearings, and then after you guys have your hearings, we'll move on to SGA and Senate adoption. And then in April, after SGA has adopted the proposal will go to the president for his approval. The president does have the authority to make changes. Sometimes we have to recognize that. But during my time here at the university, which is going on about 7 years, I've never seen that happen. So I certainly wouldn't have that expectation. And then after the president signs off on it, then the budget office will take it to the Kansas Board of Regents as part of the tuition proposal. That goes to the Board of Regents. They have their first read of the proposal in mid-May, and then adoption is usually mid-June. Now, at K-Board, that's not the same as the experience with the president. A couple of years ago, K-Board did not accept the request that was submitted to them. The request included a 1% increase in the student fee rate. K-Board asked that that rate be held flat, as well as that year we also had a refinancing of the RSC debt, which created some savings in your guys' budget. And the Student Fees Committee chose to reallocate those funds to support other services within your budget. And K-Board preferred instead that those savings be used to reduce the fee. And so you can, as you guys put together a request and go through all these stages, it is possible that when it gets to the Board of Regents that they may not adopt what you've proposed. So we just need to make sure that we recognize that. If I can push the correct button here. There we go. You guys probably know from looking at the journal that the departments that are funded through this process are on a kind of a three-year cycle. And this year we're in cycle year B, and you can see the departments that come before you based on that. The other important thing to know is that for the other budgets that are in year A and year C, their budgets are essentially kind of baked in, if you will. You could change them, but the intent of this process is that those budgets stay as they were previously adopted. And then the other dynamic that you guys need to understand as we work through this process is for the budgets that are in year A and year C, because they've already been adopted, the way this process works is if in the revenue estimate, if there should be an increase in credit hours and an expectation that we're going to bring in more students and thus we're going to generate more revenue, then those departments in year A and year C get the benefit of that as well within their budget. If the opposite is occurring and the expectation is that credit hours will be falling or decreasing, then they also have to figure out how to work within that budget based on that. And so when we get to the revenue estimate, you'll see that there is an expectation that there will be some additional revenue generated from credit hour and student growth, but some of those dollars are already spoken for because the budgets in year A and year C have already been adopted. Does that kind of make some sense? Okay. We'll dig into that a little bit more as we go along. Within your binder, you have some pages that basically look like this, an outline of the narrative request, as well to the right side you have an outline of kind of the detailed budget request that each area is suggesting, requesting of all of you. One thing that's really important for you guys to recognize as you work through this, and you kind of see it with that arrow that is in the WSU gold colors, and that is that kind of twofold actually. One is that each of these areas can potentially be generating revenue other than just the student fees. And so the account that you see outlined here with the arrow is representing just the student fees that they are requesting you to allocate to them. And so just recognize that there can be a mix of different revenues that are funding these services. The other thing to know is that when you adopt your budget, you are adopting essentially an allocation of revenues. You're not necessarily adopting their expense budget, if that makes sense. This gives you just kind of a quick outline of the student support services fee and how that is structured. And so over to the left, I think it's important that we all remember that the student services support fee is actually basically 3 different components. So it is funding health and wellness, the SGA Student Support Services fee, which is what all of you are doing here today, as well as intercollegiate athletics. And then over to the right, you have a breakdown of what that fee looks like on the tier basis. So the more credit hours that a student takes, the higher the fee, and the opposite, the less hours they take, the lower the fee, as well as that credit hour structure is a little bit different between if you're an undergraduate or a graduate student. This slide gives you an outline, sorry, it's kind of getting cut off there. This gives you an outline of some of the history of the fee changes over time. What you can see here going back to 2018 when this fee was implemented with that tier structure in 2018, the increases have really been pretty moderate. And if you look at 2022, that was the year I was referencing in which the Kansas Board of Regents did not adopt what SGA's requested proposal was. Now for the revenue estimates. So for my office, what we do is we take a look at how the student headcount breaks down within each one of these tiers. And again, you might remember the fee structure varies a little bit in the sense of the number of credit hours related to each tier between undergraduate and graduates, and that's why you have this breakdown here between those two. And in this table you can kind of see what our history has been for fiscal year 2022 actuals, what that looked like, and then for the fiscal year 2023 estimate, our current fiscal year, you can see what the actual fall experience was, the actual spring experience was, and what we are estimating for summer currently. And then further to the right, you have the fiscal year 2024 estimate. The university is still experiencing undergraduate declines in undergraduate headcounts, and that's a phenomenon that's kind of hitting all of the institutions in the state of Kansas. That's not unusual to us. But we've had very strong growth on the graduate side, as you see outlined on this table. As we move into 2024, our estimates are that on the undergraduate side, that the student headcount will continue to decline, but not quite as severe as it had been in the past 2 years. And then on the graduate side, that we continue to have some growth, but for that growth to not be as significant as it had been in the past. One of the reasons that we're not expecting that growth to be as significant as it has been in the past is a lot of that growth is concentrated within the College of Engineering, and as well as international students, and those programs are starting to get maxed out to the capacity that they can that they have to bring new students in. And then kind of converting those headcount estimates into what we think the revenue estimate could look like. Lindsay's table here breaks down for you if there was no fee increase. The expectation would be total revenue of $10,265,000, and then she breaks out for you if you were to look at a fee increase, how much additional revenue would that an equivalent of a 1% increase generate for you. And as she outlined here at the bottom, your total request that you have before you today totals $10,760,000. This slide's a little bit cut off here, but what it's intended to outline for you is this very first line totals $10,002,000, and that's what your adopted budget was last year. The revenue estimate without any fee increase is estimated at $10,265,000. Now, you might remember what I was referencing about the different the cycle of the different departments that come before you, of those that are in year B versus year A and year C. And so because we do expect an increase in student headcount, and the revenue that that generates then is already somewhat dedicated to those budgets that are not coming before you and that have already previously been adopted, if that makes sense. And so Lindsay outlined here for you, of that increase of $263,000, $108,000 of that would already be dedicated to those budgets that are in the 3-year cycle of year A and year C. Total requests of $10,760,000, like we already spoke about, and then she has an outline there of what each 1% increase in the fee of the additional revenue that would generate. So roughly about $100,000 is the equivalent for each 1% increase in the fee. Another important thing for all of you to know, there are university employees that are funded through the proposals before you. Governor Kelly did include within her recommended budget a 5% compensation increase for state employees. That still has to work through the legislature and be adopted by the legislature, so we don't know exactly what is going to happen when that occurs in May. But the expectation is that something is going to remain in the state budget, and most likely it probably will be in that 5% range. And so that is also a dynamic that all of you have to consider as you're putting this budget together. And so if you were to adopt the full 5% increase, that would be an equivalent cost, including benefits, of $98,000. And you could look at doing something different, maybe partially funding the increases. And Lindsay just outlined here if it was I believe if instead of 5% you budgeted for 4%, then it would be $78,000. Now, one thing for you guys to know, even if you adopted a budget of, even if you planned on budgeting for less than the full 5%, if the state does do a 5%, and that is also what the university does, then those employees will still get a 5% increase regardless of what you budgeted. But those departments will have to figure out how to find that variance themselves. So that's an important dynamic for you to know. Program cash balances. So in your binder, you have a table that outlines the cash balances for each of these areas. What that means is that at the end of the fiscal year, just like your own checkbook, how much cash did you have retained at the end of the fiscal year? And so previous SGA committees have taken action to say, this department looks like its cash balance has grown pretty significantly. They have a lot of cash, so we're going to sweep that. We're going to take those dollars away from them, and we're going to transfer that back under the authority of SGA. And you may choose to either add that to your cash balance, or you may choose to allocate that in order to fund a program on a one-time basis, if you will. I don't believe last year that the SGA committee took any of those types of actions. I would encourage you strongly, if you do look at that table and you have some thoughts about trying to do something like that, if you talk to us here in the budget office first so that we can coordinate with that department, because it may be that they are saving up that cash balance for maybe computer replacements or something like that that they don't do every single year. And so there may be a reason that that cash balance has been growing. And then just final thoughts, as you guys put together your budget, it has to be a balanced budget, meaning that your resources and your expenses match. And as well, just re-referencing that those programs not presenting, those in year A and year C, those budgets are essentially locked in right now at this stage based on the structure of your guys' journal of how these budgets are set up. That doesn't mean that you can't revisit them, and Gabe can probably talk about that a little bit more, but you guys would have to go through that process of revisiting them and altering their budgets. So, with that said, I think that closes out my presentation. Are there any questions I can address?
All right, are there any questions for David? Commissioner Van Dyke?
So on that last slide,
This one here? or
no, the
go-
next one, sorry. Yep. So when it says something like -2, -5%, how do we read that in comparison? Because I know it can't exceed 10%. You said if it exceeds 10%, then we can pull from it, but what about the negatives?
So for the negatives, we had how do I want to talk about this, Lindsay? So last year, when the revenues are collected, they have to be distributed to each individual department. And so the Department of Financial Services, essentially the accounting department of the university, handles that. They cut off those distributions early last year, and so the full collections did not get distributed to each individual area. And so that is the reason you probably see these little tiny dollar amounts here of some negative balances. The Child Development Center is a little bit bigger, but they also have a bigger budget. And so for those, I would just kind of ignore those because they got resolved when the distributions kicked off for this fiscal year.
With seeing no further questions, David, thank you for presenting. Clerk Malone, we can go to the next line item.
Public forum.
Just read off, okay. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. Okay. SGA policies require that the commission provide an opportunity to the public to address the commission. Advisor Fonseca, has anyone requested to speak during public forum?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we will move on to opening statements. In compliance with SGA policies, each member upon recognition is entitled to offer an opening statement. Are there any members wishing to present an opening statement? Okay, seeing,
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
Terry, go ahead.
Waiting for my cue. Good morning. Morning. It's a great day to be a shocker. I was thinking today about, my colleague and I, Werner Golang, started January 8th, 2017. And so some of the first functions that we got to work on with all of you and each other were the student fees process. And so a little nostalgic at this point in time as we start this process, but I'm also very aware that the process has come a long way in the 6 years that we've been here. And so really looking forward to some collaborative discussions over the next few days as we talk about meeting student needs and the best way of allocating resources. One of the things I wanted to mention as we move forward is that if you look at some of the student affairs areas that are coming before you today, they're coming in with no budget requests, if you notice. And part of the reason why the reason why they're able to do that is because we as a division have reallocated internally $320,000 in order to then not have more allocations come forward to this table. We have some increases coming from SEAL, which I believe are student fee funded, appropriate funds for student fees to consider, as well as some of the increases that we need in benefits and salaries. But without having the conversations and doing the reallocation within student affairs, there would have been an additional $250,000 that came forward in student fee requests. But because of the work that we did internally, we're funding those without having them come forward with the requests. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to kind of get some props from you all beforehand to say, hey, thanks, Dr. Hall. That was really nice of you to do that. Because these make for really difficult conversations. And I like to say to my staff, everybody needs new shoes, right? Everyone can make really compelling arguments about why these functions are important. But by doing this reallocation, we were able to then put some priority to some of the things that we didn't want to have to do, have you choose between, do we fund more money for prevention services, or do we fund more money for a care team director, to let us take care of that, so then we could focus on some other things that are appropriate student fee kind of conversations to have. So I'm happy to take any questions that you have. Part of that 320 that we reallocated is that we've made the decision not to hire another dean of students, so we were able to reallocate Dr. Austin's salary toward this. So I'm happy to go in greater detail if you have questions about some of the decisions we made internally, but the bottom line is that we cut $320,000 within student affairs in order to fund some new initiatives so that we could minimize the request coming forward to student fees. Also wanted to make sure that you understood that we are partners in this process, and we don't want to keep raising student fees and put it on students' backs. And we're also, beyond this point, having some longer-term discussions about where could additional cuts be made in student fees to help continue to reduce some of that barrier, that burden that we have within our division. So more to come, but that's where we sit today in terms of the request. So I just didn't want you to think that we don't have new needs in student affairs. We absolutely do. But we've been working on being creative so that you wouldn't have to make all those decisions and carry that burden. Do you have any questions for me?
Are there any questions for Commissioner Hall?
I also have Scott Jensen in the back. Scott is our Assistant Vice President for Operations, who oversees the student affairs budgets. And so he's been a part of these discussions, and I just wanted to share the joy with him about what our experiences are going to be like over the next couple of days. So I wanted Scott to be here so you could get to know him, but so that he could oversee this process with us as well.
All right, are there any further opening statements? Go ahead.
So I think one thing that I want to just share as we kind of go into this process, and I know you've all heard me say this during our meetings over the past semester, but first, I don't actually know if we ever thanked you for accepting the nomination to the Student Fees Commission. I know when Vice President Thorian and I were talking about the candidates, I think the one thing that goes in my head is that this is a stressful process, and as much as the process has changed, I can't take the stress away from it, because, right, you all are making decisions that are going to impact 16,000 students about the needs and services that these dollars provide. And so one of the things that I encourage you to do this week, and I know you've heard me say it already, but definitely pay attention, ask questions, and don't make assumptions during this process. If something isn't clear or something is written in the book that you need some further explanation on, please ask those questions. Even if these areas aren't, or some of these areas aren't coming in for an increase, they're up for their review of their dollars. And so I encourage you to, one, of course, right, pay attention, but then also to not be afraid to ask questions. I know that Commissioner Villa shared that last time of if you don't know, ask so that you can be informed before you go into that. So one, thank you for spending the next 2 days with us. I know today is going to be a long day. Tomorrow is going to be a longer day. But thank you for taking time out of your weeks to do this and out of your days to do it in representing your colleges and the areas that some of you were forced to be here because of the positions you hold on SGA. So I just wanted to throw that out there as we go through this process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alrighty, thank you both for speaking in public forum, or was that opening statements? Opening statements. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, how long should we recess? Alrighty, the 10:50. Okay, the commission will recess until 10:50.
This is your time to take a break. and then the red light will come on, and then just bring it close. You don't have to like yell into it, but don't keep it up here. One more time, yeah, please. That button, and then the red light will come on, and
This button?
Okay. Commission will come back to order if there are no objections. It is the opinion of the chair that all members are present. Clerk Malone, we are ready to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to commission regulations as set by the SGA policies, each requesting entity is entitled to a total presentation not to exceed 30 minutes, with 15 minutes for the line item presentation and 15 minutes for questions by the commission. Additionally, no member may interrupt the presenter during their 15-minute presentation except for the chair. At the conclusion of each presentation, the chair shall open the floor to questions. Members must seek recognition prior to addressing the presenter. The chair reserves the right to silence a member if they speak out of turn or are not called on. Finally, the chair shall regulate the question period, ensuring the similar questions are not asked more than twice.
Thank you, Clerk Malone. As the regulations have been presented, are there any questions from the commission? All right, Clerk Malone, we are ready to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, presentation number 1 is the College of Fine Arts. Their request is located on page 1 of the fees binder.
All right, welcome and thank you for taking time to present to the commission. You'll have 15 minutes to present, and then we will follow that with 15 minutes of questionings. All right, you may begin.
Well, good morning. My name is Dr. Rodney Miller, and it has been my privilege to be the Dean of the College of Fine Arts for 19 years now, and will only have that privilege another 3.5 months when I retire in a blaze of semi-glory in June. Megan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? Not used to a microphone. Okay. My name is Megan Ewert, and I am the College of Fine Arts Business Manager. I'm here with Rodney Miller today as the Dean of the College of Fine Arts to represent fine arts programming for a request of $50,000 over the next 3 fiscal years. All right, anything to add?
Nope.
All right, here we go.
The pre-pandemic College of Fine Arts presented over 500 presentations, performances, and exhibitions and productions in an academic year. As you could well imagine, the pandemic obliterated a lot of what we were trying to do in the area of performing and so forth. But we are slowly getting back to those figures, and the only reason I mention that is that the figures for this academic year won't quite replicate what pre-pandemic was, but we truly anticipate that next academic year will. So having said that, I'll turn it over to Megan.
Okay. So this request is to fund fine arts programming, which consists of multiple areas in 2 schools within the College of Fine Arts. Of the provided student fee funding, each school receives a percentage, which is listed there, 30% and 70%, to cover a portion of the cost for all fine arts productions and concerts. And once again, I want to stress portion. You'll see that the School of Music consists of concert, School of Performing Arts, dance, musical theater, opera, and university theater. School of Performing Arts will receive the lion's share as there are more areas to distribute funding to, but also because musical theater and opera productions cost the most to produce. The differing costs between School of Music and School of Performing Arts tickets also reflects the cost of shows to put on. School of Performing Arts has a tiered ticket pricing, with the highest cost being adult pricing at $20 a ticket, while School of Music performances have less overhead, even though there are more performances overall. Tickets are also cheaper at $6 a ticket. So there's our request, $50,000. Previously received, $43,000. I think last year was more $44,000 because there was a $1,000 additional that showed up in that area. We're asking for an increase of $6,688 to assist in offsetting rising costs due to inflation of raw materials. This rise in prices is most felt in funding for costume and set construction. This request will provide a necessary portion of funding that will assist in covering a yearly production budget The budget for FY23 is estimated at $136,000 total. Our funding request will allow fine arts programming to continue to offer quality, diverse productions while also delivering applied learning experience and continue the established SGA precedent of keeping tickets to events free to WSU students. So you can see here on the pie chart, FY22 also had a budget of $136,000. The school budgets covered 42% of that cost, which is just over $57,000. SGA funding came in second with 33%, and ticket sales at 25%. Productions require a significant portion of each school's own funding to cover the cost every year. Each year, the total programming budget will run somewhere between $120,000 and $140,000. It is important to note that private donations do not usually cover productions, as those are focused on providing student scholarships. I think it's important to point out that we've been seeking additional funding efforts. On the right, you can see that School of Performing Arts is in the process of seeking additional corporate sponsorship to assist in funding free community performances. This year, there will be 6 of those performances. This would be a partnership with Boys and Girls Club, USD 259, Shocker Neighborhood Schools, Progeny Youth Group, which is focused on children with incarcerated parents, and rural community schools. This would cost $12,000 to $15,000 a year to fund. It is listed rather as one of our goals for this next rotation to fund. The other things are listed are specific to each area or school. So the Musical Theater Incubator Fund is only for School of Performing Arts. It is only for brand new musical productions only. The Connoisseur Series is only for School of Music, and it is primarily for guest artist performances and related expenses. That could be receptions, catering for receptions, travel expenses, obviously the guest artist fee, that type of thing. So fine arts programming, SGA, if you support us, you're supporting diversity of programming, and that includes operas, musicals, dance, plays, choirs, original films, instrumental ensembles, and guest artist performances.
I would like to just interject, when we say original films, we're talking about full-length 2-hour original films that are written, produced, directed, and acted by College of Fine Arts personnel and students.
Thank you. And how do students know about it? We do advertise around campus and the community, but the main way is we have an event website, a CFA calendar. You can go to cfacalendar.com to see that. And this is just a screenshot of 2 weeks, and you can see each little thing is its own event. This includes ticketed events and free events. We're known to produce upwards of 500 events a year that are both, like I said, free and ticketed. As far as ticketed events are concerned, usually around 60 a year. We encourage everyone to go to the website, sign up for free tickets. That is your right as a student to get a free ticket to any of these events. Every WSU student can receive a free ticket, no exceptions. These free tickets account for around 30% of all ticket sales every single year. Looking at ticket sales, this is just this last fiscal year. Not sure why that pie chart is suddenly 3D. But anywho, you'll see that the dark blue, 33%, that was the free student tickets last year. So 33% out of 7,379 tickets total, which came out to 2,262 free tickets, worth just under $17,000. As far as those ticket sales in total, our gross income was just under $50,000. The net total, which is minus all the fees that we have to pay out and taxes, meant that we were just under $34,000 as far as revenue. Currently, FY23 is on track to surpass ticket sales of FY22 in a trend of recovery post a COVID-related downturn. This is one of our musicals from a couple years ago, Seussical. So why is this stuff so expensive? If you give us funding, you'd be supporting rising production costs. Production costs include costume construction, set construction, hair and makeup for performers, photography of events, royalties, licensing of scripts and scores, digital recording and streaming, costume shop and scene shop student worker pay, labor costs for lighting and audio, etc., and guest artists. This is actually a picture of our most recent production of Pippin. I don't know if any of you guys got to see that, but it was a really big hit. But what does it cost? This is how much that costs, just under $40,000 to produce Pippin. And so in your sheet here, as kind of your additional paperwork, you'll see this SPA, or School of Performing Arts, production budget page. This is something that the School of Performing Arts creates every year to plan ahead for the next year. Since their productions are so expensive, this is what they have to do to make sure they stay on track. And so this is School of Performing Arts only, not School of Music. So you could see here at the very bottom, $101,813.75 is their target budget based on the listed productions. And the blue highlighted line across is Pippin specifically. On this, it'll mention guest artists, but you'll see here, it's guest artists is really referring to the orchestra and orchestra director. There was an orchestra director and I believe 10 performing musicians for this event. So it is expensive, and it's really the expense that makes it so spectacular in the end. I mean, this is not stuff that they buy online, this is stuff they make themselves. And so this is where inflation has really come into play as far as our purchasing power, so to speak. Textiles, the cost of cedar alone that's used to make sets has skyrocketed, and our request amount has not increased for a while. And so the purchasing power shrinks and shrinks every year as a result. So you'll see here just under $40,000 as far as their percentage towards the overall fiscal year 23 budget. That's just under 30% of the budget for one production. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to not use the thing. Okay. So total revenue, this is Pippin by the numbers. How did this all turn out? Gross income, just over $10,000. Net income, a little bit over $9,300. We sold 948 tickets. 253 of those were free student tickets worth just over $5,000 of revenue. That's if the cost of the tickets were $20 each, which is the adult pricing for School of Performing Arts productions. That's what students would have paid. So you'll see here the cost versus ticket revenue, we're functioning at a deficit of just over $30,000. Now this is considered a successful show, and you'll see here the review that I found randomly off Facebook was really nice. Extraordinary. I have seen Pippin several times in the Wichita State production. What I saw of tonight's rivals the professional companies I've been to, incredible talent and choreography. The dancing blew my mind. Students get free tickets, and I sat by a girl who this was her very first live theater experience. She could not believe it and was talking about what she could see next. That's what we want to hear. That's the whole point of fine arts programming.
Fine arts programming has essentially three different rationales for existing. One you just heard, to provide all of the students at Wichita State with cultural experiences that transcend just their classroom experience within their major. One of the reasons that all of you have come to college is to get a well-rounded education. That well-rounded education must involve exposure to the arts and the cultural events that occur on this campus. And this campus does an exceptional job, both in quality and in quality, of providing exactly that. The second reason is because of the applied learning experiences that our students are required within their major to have. There are national accrediting bodies that govern our different areas, and one of the expectations is that students do actually what they are learning to do in their classroom experiences. And the third, of course, is to connect us to the community overall and to present Wichita State to the greater Wichita and Kansas community.
We are trying really hard to avoid raising ticket prices. Ticket prices affect accessibility, and if someone has the choice between getting groceries and going to see a musical theater production, I think the choice is obvious. I think it's an impending thing, raising our prices, but we're fighting it very hard, and I think the funding from SGA really affects that decision.
So As I told you already, after 19 years, I'm retiring. There is a certain irony to my tenure here. The last musical that was presented in my final semester was Pippin. Ironically, the very first musical that was presented when I got here in the fall of 2004 was Pippin. As you can see from this slide, there are 4 alums from that production who have gone on to have significant Broadway careers. One of whom, his photo you just passed, Julius Thomas III. Torian Everett is currently on Broadway in Moulin Rouge. Alex Stoll just finished a run of West Side Story where he played Biff. And Javier Ignacio is playing a lead role in the revival of Company right now on Broadway. And as I said, Julius Thomas III just finished a 2-year tour of Hamilton where he did the lead role, the title role, Hamilton. And all 4 of them have had multiple Broadway experiences. In my time, in my 19 years, close to a dozen of our alums have appeared on Broadway.
That's okay. So in the end, fine arts programming produces student success. Our programs attract students excited to enter performing arts because we have alumni that are representing what WSU is all about, and that's a celebration of diversity and excellence. We want to continue creating these success stories, but we do need your help. And that's where we're going to throw down to our next slide. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I was like, maybe it's because I touched it. So this is just kind of going back and just breaking down what we're providing. We're providing accessibility. Any student can go to any fine arts production without worrying about cost. Every student can engage with cultural events and explore multiple forms of artistic expression, all on campus. Applied learning. Productions are an applied learning experience for School of Music and School of Performing Arts majors. The ability to perform is what draws students to these programs, and it's required coursework. Performances are a required part of the degree path for all School of Music and School of Performing Arts students. These majors cannot graduate without these performance experiences. As Rodney said, cultural events are important to a well-rounded college experience. And fine arts programming affects a lot of WSU students. Any student can benefit. We have the potential to serve all of our students directly through free access to our events, but also directly serves all of our College of Fine Arts majors as required coursework. School of Music and School of Performing Arts majors, once again, cannot graduate without the required performance experience gained from these events. And to limit these events due to funding restrictions robs the students of the experiences and opportunities they paid for to partake in as part of their professional practice and applied learning. There are just over 1,000 CFA majors in total.
So, if athletics is the front door to Wichita State University, the College of Fine Arts are the windows. If you take away men's basketball, there are as many people who come to our fine arts events as the rest of athletics combined. It is a very, very significant portal from Wichita State to the community. Again, I don't want to sound overly maudlin, but since I am retiring, this is my last time in front of you. I'd like to thank you for the support that SGA has given over the years. And here's why, for me, here's one of the reasons why that's so important. Perhaps the most seminal event in my career occurred slightly more than 10 years ago. At the very moment that Adam Lanza was trolling the halls of Sandy Hook Elementary, killing 26 children and teachers, I was sitting in Century 2 watching Ballet Wichita enthrall 2,000 elementary school children. There were Wichita State students who were in the orchestra, who were on stage dancing, who were tech working it, who had worked on the costumes. That event would not have occurred without Wichita State faculty and students. That's what we are trying to do in the College of Fine Arts. Thank you. We'll open it up for questions.
Alrighty. Thank you both for presenting. We will now move into the questioning period where we will have around 15 minutes to ask questions. So without further ado, are there any questions for our presenters? Commissioner Van Dyke?
Yes, first and foremost, I really like this quote, and thank you both for this presentation. First, my question is, how do you all promote these fine art events or these fine art productions, rather? I know you gave a link in your slide presentation, but how do you also promote that link?
Well, every one of our schools, and we have 4 schools, School of Digital Arts, School of Art, Design, and Creative Industries, School of Music, and School of Performing Arts. And what we're dealing with today is primarily the latter 2. But all 4 of them have a myriad of social media outlets, Facebook, TikTok. Instagram, I'm sorry, Instagram.
We're going to be expanding into TikTok.
Yeah. And as well as the calendar that we have on our landing page for the College of Fine Arts. And we also have email lists that are generated by our box office, the people who purchase tickets, particularly within the community. We try to get an email, and so we send out emails to them as well.
On top of that, I know for a fact that, especially for Pippin or one of these larger performances, so to speak, that School of Performing Arts reached out to KSN News. It was on their website as far as their local events, and I'm sure they've reached out to the other news channels as well. We also normally advertise with, excuse me if I get this wrong, KMUW? Okay. Yeah, radio. Because COVID hit our funding so hard, and the events were not as well offered in those years because of issues with COVID restrictions, we pulled back from the radio campaign, but we're pursuing that this fall.
And the other thing that we have done on a consistent basis is we've advertised within the programs of a lot of other Wichita community arts organizations like the Wichita Symphony Orchestra or Music Theater Wichita and so forth.
Any further questions? Senator Villa?
First, I would like to say I love the presentation. My little brother's a fine arts nerd, and so I'm like rooting for you guys.
Isn't that being redundant when you say fine arts and nerd?
I mean, I'm here for it. Okay, so mine's kind of like a 2-part question. If it doesn't make sense, let me know. So on page 2, under question 3, you state something about accessible through digital means. So my question is, what do you think the outcome would be from those who come in person versus online for the production? And then what complications might you guys encounter through this or in person and digital?
I just read an article this morning about the national parks, how post-COVID national parks are experiencing a surge in people coming back to them. And I think the same thing is true of the performing arts. When COVID hit, we were desperately trying to provide outlets, first and foremost, outlets for our students. We didn't want the fact that we couldn't present a musical on a stage to prevent our music theater students or our dance students or our theater students from having that experience. And so we employed streaming and other forms. And some of that was for the moment, and some of it is what we have been talking about for a number of years. And, well, we should really live stream this sometime, and then all of a sudden COVID hit and boom, now we have to live stream and so forth. But there is nothing quite like experiencing an artistic event in person. You've all been in high school and you've all read a Shakespeare play, right? Took the tests and so forth. It is a totally different experience when you sit in a theater and watch actors in costumes and set and light actually say the soliloquies that you read and studied when you were in school. It is totally different. Did that answer your question?
Can I add to that?
Yes.
I think it's really important overall that we bring people on campus. We're growing our community. I think it's very important. WSU is probably I would say, the most visible university in town, always has been. We're always on the news. We always have success. We always have our sports. Fine arts is a part of that. We need to remain visible to the community and to people that we're looking to recruit. With our new strategy of things like Shocker Cities, for instance, that's where online is really going to benefit people who are interested in our programming and who want to possibly come and study at WSU for the fine arts specifically. I think the goal is to, whether it be something more like Vimeo or something more like YouTube, to have some actual, extended clips and, ways to experience, I don't want to say production value, but you know what I mean, like to show that, we're serious about our programming and we're putting out the best that we absolutely can out there, and that we have students that are highly successful and talented, and we really want to show that off.
A little bit of evidence of that is the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival. That is a program whereby different productions can be evaluated by adjudicators from the Kennedy Center. The Pippin that just, and if you missed it, I'm sorry you did, but the Pippin that we just produced had that adjudication. We just got word over the weekend that Pippin has been nominated for a number of national awards for Best Director, Best Costuming. Two of our actors have been nominated for the Irene Ryan in Best Acting. So who knows? We had 4 Broadway performers in the production 19 years ago. Who's to say we won't have 4 more from this one?
Commissioner Van Dyke.
Yeah, so on page 4 of my binder, it says that potentially 21,000 plus students could benefit. However, in fiscal year 22, page 9 of my binder, as well as slide number 9, tells me that only 2,262 free students tickets have been distributed. In my opinion, that is a huge gap in numbers, especially for students that don't necessarily attend these productions to still pay for these, still pay student fees. However, I have attended myself, and I would always vouch for other students to attend any of these productions. But besides promotion, what else is being done to kind of shrink this gap to make sure that students who are paying this fee are still utilizing this experience?
That's a good question. Again, the social media and other forms of promotion.
I definitely think I'm new to the business manager position, excuse me. I'm actually an admin originally from the School of Art and Design. And so I came on campus on 2019. I did not go to WSU, even though I applied to go here. I ended up going to Kansas City. I'm an art student myself, studied painting. I'm not much of a performance viewer in this kind of sense either, but I'm always interested to see how things are advertised, just like you are. And that's one thing that I've evaluated as well, is how tight is the promotion as far as these are concerned. And so I am impressed by the way they're branching out into more of the local calendars, getting more online. And like I said, we've been encouraging, especially School of Performing Arts, who has more of these high-dollar productions, to really branch out more on social media. I think it can be amped up for sure. And I think that's where we're going to reach most of the students, you know. And right now, they seem to be mostly geared towards Facebook, which, as everyone knows, you know. So Instagram, one thing that I noticed just putting together the presentation and talking with the School of Performing Arts is looking for them, just Googling, you know, going that way to get into Instagram for their page. Could not find it easily. That's a problem. Is that a glitch, or is something wrong with how their account was set up? So these are things that we're exploring to make sure that we have like optimum visibility, so to speak. But it's definitely something they're getting more into because they feel more pressured to be. And I think like I said, COVID really kind of set all this programming off track significantly. They were worried about other concerns. They had a lot more restrictions that they kind of had to bow down to immediately. And so now that we're in a recovery trend, we're out of that, we know how to navigate a lot of these problems, we're refocusing on the things that matter, like the promotion. But streaming still is something we definitely have our eye on because, like I said, as far as marketing and recruitment, I mean, it has a lot of potential. It just has an additional cost.
I'm going to say something that might sound a little negative. It's actually more frustrating, and that is, apropos to how we're getting the word out. Everything that we do in the College of Fine Arts has to be vetted by and go through strategic communications. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but for example, we have requested permission to send an email push to all WSU students about, you know, come see our production of Pippin. And we have met with resistance on that because, and I understand that if we do it on Pippin, then this other organization will want to do it for that, you know, but there are constraints as to how we can directly connect to Wichita State students.
And at the end of the day, this is always a funding issue. It's always a funding issue. So one thing I'd like to point out is the School of Performing Arts does not have a marketing recruitment person on staff. They do not. So what's happening is that the students, there's certain students that are receiving scholarships to create marketing materials for this purpose, and this is not their specialty, and this is a new thing that we're trying out to not only support them, but to support these events in that way. And so we're trying to, like I said, make this as efficient and as visible as possible with what we have to work with. Thank you for your question.
All right, Commissioner Lesnick.
Yes, I just wanted to ask you if you could expand a little bit more on some corporate sponsorships that you're seeking, and if those are, I know your slide says they're only for the community partnerships, but are they also extending into your performances that are going to be put up on campus?
In order to answer that, and then I'll let Megan answer that, but in order to answer it fully, you have to understand that in the course of my tenure as the dean, there have been a couple of areas where we have seen changes. During the Brownback administration, the Kansas Arts Commission was dissolved, and we typically received approximately $10,000 to $15,000 precisely for marketing from on an annual basis from the Kansas Arts Commission. Because the Kansas Arts Commission was dissolved, we were not eligible for NEA grant funding as well. Also, the Mid-America Arts Alliance. Those three entities made up about $20,000 in grant funding that we used to have access to that we no longer do. Having said that.
Sorry, my brain is shutting down. Can you repeat that?
Yes, I was just asking if you could expand more on what kind of corporate sponsorships are you looking for, and are they only for the community performances, or will they also expand to some funds for the university stuff?
Thank you. So, School of Performing Arts is really excited about these community performances, and you can see all the partnerships that I listed. The point of those is to get as many of these young students on our campus as possible. They're going to be bussed onto our campus, they're going to go to our performance spaces, they're going to see what WSU is about, and I think that's really important that we engage students in our community in that way, especially students who wouldn't think to pursue performing arts. Like, I mean, you know, we've kind of had these up and down turns on the economy. There's constantly talk of an impending recession. I mean, the confidence is not high to pursue creative fields. It's just not. So this is really important to give people that confidence and to, you know, kind of fuel the beginnings of that passion to pursue the creative fields. When it comes to the corporate sponsorships, School of Performing Arts has not disclosed to us who they're pursuing. I think that's kind of a hush-hush thing by nature until it's like a done deal. But they are, like I said, actively looking for that because they want to provide these performances to these particular groups. And you can see that there's a built-in cost to that. $12,000 to $15,000 a year is the estimate. That I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming that cost has a lot to do with a portion of what it costs to produce each individual show, because, for example, I think there's 6 performances this year, and there would be 6 community performances. So whatever they're putting on, like Pippin, it's not like they would do a whole new performance. They would expand the performance set amount and do one just for this purpose. And so not only does that save money on not having to rent other spaces or bus a whole bunch of people with all the costumes and all the things over to other spaces, but like I said, it really brings people on campus and lets them experience what WSU is all about. Did I answer your question?
Commissioner Brown, did you have a question?
Yes, I know you guys talked about the Boys and Girls Club, Shocker Neighborhood Schools, and the Prodigy Youth Group, and just like engaging with them with free community performances. So I just wanted to ask, like, if you guys can just touch more basis on that. Like, are you going to bring them to campus to have like internship opportunities or like hands-on experiences? Because I know for myself, like, excuse me, I work at the Boys and Girls Club, and like it would be so cool to see those kids like being able to have opportunities offered to them, especially with WS students. And I know a lot of students are passionate with fine arts. So can you just like break that down a little bit more, please?
Well, so right now, all they have planned that's official is bringing them on campus and letting them experience these performances in our spaces. Obviously, it's a recruitment thing. Obviously, WSU is probably going to be swoop in there and be like, hey, and like hand them swag and things like that. I think the impression I get, especially from the School of Performing Arts director, Chayla Clausen, is that she would be interested in expanding into more of these things. But once again, it really does come down to funding. Because you would think that, oh, well, what could that potentially cost? Well, to have a full-time staff or faculty person do that would be considered an overload or require additional compensation, and that could be thousands of dollars depending on the amount of time. But engagement with the community is really important, and that's the whole point of these types of events. And so this is something I think they're just rolling out, so it's got a lot of potential to expand into that. But we need to make sure that we can cover it. And so that's where, like I said, it becomes more of an issue of who are we partnered with, who's willing to reach out and assist us. And at the end of the day, I just really want to stress that again and again and again till it's just dead, is that we're looking for a portion of coverage for these expenses in this budget. We're not asking, I mean, it seems like an awful lot. 50 sounds like a lot. But when you look at how much it costs every year to do what we're doing, it is very expensive, and we're still covering, and by we're I say School of Music and School of Performing Arts are using a significant portion of their budget that they would put towards a staff position or another teaching position or, you know, faculty development or student travel. I mean, it has to come from somewhere. And so they, you know, are doing their best to make sure that we can not only provide a variety of performances every year, but they are trying to be very careful about making sure that they are, you know, fulfilling all the required coursework for their students. A lot of School of Music performances or events are ones that of like junior, senior kind of recital type things that they have to do in order to graduate. So they have to fulfill that before they commit to anything else like, you know, a holiday choir concert or something, which is also very popular. You know, they always want to make sure they put that out every year. And so this is where the planning goes back and forth, and there's a lot of budgeting and a lot of feedback between students and alumni about what would you like to do, what would you like to see, on top of, you know, all the faculty and staff and the dean's office coming together with them and saying, what can we afford? What can we do to give students the best experience, to put on the best performances, but still, you know, not hurt each school trying to do more than they should do. And it's always been a matter of like, well, maybe trim this or maybe trim that. But it's at a certain point when you lessen the quality, that's when the students stop coming. That's when this doesn't happen. That's when the students don't want to pursue their major here. So it's very important that we maintain quality. So when we do expand and go out and do more and have internships, it really means something. Thank you.
Alrighty, that's all the time we have for questions, so thank you both for coming to present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have mentioned it earlier. It's normal that we run out of time for questions, so if you have other questions, if you can just drop them in the group me, and then we'll email them to them so that they can respond to those before we deliberate tomorrow. Thank you.
I think you'll just go. Right? Thank you. Regulations have been presented. I would just go say the presentation number. Okay. Alrighty. Welcome. Thank you for taking your time to come present to us today. You will have relatively 15 minutes to present, 15 minutes to answer questions. So we will go around, introduce ourselves, and then you can introduce yourself as well. So I'm Jacob Brand, a finance student. I'm the chair of this committee, the student government treasurer. So you can go.
I am Mary Elizabeth Orton. I am the vice chair for the committee. I sit as the student body vice president.
I'm Nora Malone. I am the clerk of this committee, and I also serve as the clerk to the Senate of the student body.
I am Gregory Van Dyke Jr., Speaker of the Senate. We're just doing introductions, I'm sorry. Okay.
Hello, my name is Olga Lesnik. I am a College of Health Professions student, and I'm Budget and Finance Chair, and I think we've met.
I am Cassie McAllister, and I'm here representing the College of Fine Art.
I'm Tanata Mafume, and I'm representing the College of Engineering.
Hey, oh my goodness, sorry. Hi, my name is Jacqueline Villa. I am a commissioner for, obviously right here, I'm a graduate student representing the graduate school as well as SGA College Applied Studies Senator.
Hello, my name is Devin Moore. I am representing the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Brown, and I'm here representing College of Applied Studies.
Hello, my name is Valeria Pauneto. I am representing the Cohen Honors College, and I am the Safety and Citizen Service Chair as well.
My name is Jordan Webb, and I'm representing the College of Health Professions.
My name is Esther Biluti, and I'm representing the College of Business.
Werner Goling, Vice President for Finance Administration.
Terry Hall, Vice President for Student Affairs.
Jason Post with the Budget Office.
Hi, David Miller with the Budget Office.
Lindsay Pletcher with the Budget Office.
Gabriel Fonseca, SGA Advisor.
You want me to go ahead? Okay. Hello all, thank you for inviting us today. My name is Heather Stafford. I am the Director of Student Health Services and representing our department today for the fee hearings. I wanted to thank you first for allowing us to come in today and represent our department. We thank you for your continued support of our student health program and to the fee committee for your consideration of our 3-year fee requests. I would also like to thank our student health services clinical staff because without their dedication to providing accessible, affordable, and high-quality healthcare services to WSU students, we wouldn't have such a successful program. Student health has contributed to Wichita State University's strategic plan for almost over 90 years. We've been around for a really long time. And our mission, core goals, and priorities are focused on students and supporting them in their learning and success by assisting them in maintaining a state of optimal physical and mental wellness. Most of my remarks have already been put into the proposal, so hopefully you've all had a chance to read that. I would also like to thank you for your support of our college health program when a previously requested and approved fee increase allowed student health to hire a new clinic physician. Dr. Delane Vaughn has been employed by Student Health since June of 2022 and has supported many of the new service items that we have initiated. These new service items were a result of a fall 2021 health needs assessment survey that was conducted by Dr. Amy Dressenham's Public Health Sciences and Health Administration students. Almost 1,500 student responses were collected, and services that were requested were things like a dietitian, physical therapy, orthopedic care, ADHD, medication services, and others that were in these top 10 results of the services they requested. And I am proud to say that we have implemented 5 of those top 10 results. What is not on that list that I have passed around to you is also a new physical therapy clinic that we have done a soft opening for this semester and have a really good success with that clinic already in the first month that it has been available. Those services have a lot of the data from just the first semester that they have been in service, and I think we have a really good data set here to indicate how much that new physician has created these new services in our department. A lot of the new things that you see here also attribute to some mental health support for our students, as well as some of the other items that they requested. I think the one thing that I'm the most proud of is the fact that we have employed almost 3 times the amount of students in our clinic, and we have also practically tripled the amount of clinical students who are able to do their focus of their program in our clinic as well. At this time, I would just like to highlight that Student Health Services is not requesting a fee increase, but only asking to receive the same allocation of $1,058,991. Student Health has been very fiscally responsible by being a good steward of our SGA allocated fees to support professional and student staff salaries. While the fees do not completely cover those salaries and benefits, your SGA contribution has enabled us to retain a team of highly qualified professional and licensed staff, while also providing opportunities for applied learning to many student employees. We hope to continue the same level of quality health care to students and continue to grow with student health needs. My last thing that I would like to add is that while we have attempted to manage what post-COVID looks like in Student Health Services budget, we do not foresee the need to maintain a healthy reserve to help support our pandemic services to the community and campus. As prices increase for medical supplies, equipment, and medication and salaries and benefits, we can continue to deliver quality health care. We continue to be good stewards of the funding that we receive and do not anticipate our reserves ending over the 10% of our allocated budget as identified by the SGA bylaws. Short and sweet. So I am available for questions.
Alrighty, are there any questions? Commissioner Van Dyke?
Hello. Just a quick question. On page 17, letter E reads, or starts out with, our health promotion efforts which reach over 4,000 students through numerous presentations, events, and social media, etc. My question is, so 4,000 students, and I think the population of undergraduate students at least is roughly around 16,300 or something. So where are the other 12,000 students or so going? Do you know? Would you have a guess?
So are you asking about our outreach efforts, or are you asking about direct care to students in our clinic?
More so, one of my bigger concerns throughout the whole student fees process is students paying dollars that they don't necessarily utilize certain resources. And so looking at the 4,000 students that are being reached through Student Health Services, and I'll consider myself as one of them, the other 12,000 students, not necessarily promotional outreach, because I'm sure that student health it's visible, but why is there such a disparity in that number is my question.
Okay, so we actually saw over 5,000 students just for last semester alone in the clinic. I believe maybe the number that you're referring to is that more for our health education and outreach, because the number of students that we see directly in the student health clinic usually is over 9,000 a year.
Over 9,000? Okay.
And we actually have to do tuberculosis screening for every single student at the university at some point in their career. So that process also engages phone calls with students, tuberculosis testing, and so we actually reach every single student almost every year or within their time here at WSU.
And you were right. Sorry, Okay. You were right. I'm sorry. As I read further, it did say health education. So I guess, but you mentioned 9,000 students. So for that other rough 6,000 students, do you know, do they still utilize, or do they just have local physicians that they do in lieu of student health?
Well, we do deal with a very healthy population that may never come into student health services, except for maybe one time for a sore throat or something else that is attributed to their healthcare needs. Also, yes, we are in an urban setting where maybe they do tend to continue with their own pediatrician or physician if they do live here in the Sedgwick County area.
Senator Villa?
Awesome. So I am a person who has ADHD, so I know the whole process of medication and all that stuff. So how do you guys... Okay, sorry, I'm like scatterbrained to ADHD. How are you guys diagnosing ADHD versus from a psychiatrist outside, like off campus? And what alternatives do you guys provide for those who do not choose the medication route?
So we typically ask from a student before they begin medication services that they have some sort of testing or evaluation. If they have had a testing, we would accept that from their high school or any other formal testing services. Or we would also ask them, if they don't have that documentation, to see a counselor in the Counseling and Prevention Services Department to have some sort of evaluation to correlate with that illness and diagnosis. Then they'll see one of our providers, and many options are given to our students, both stimulants and non-stimulant options. We currently do have a small amount of samples for non-stimulant medications. Students do try those. We are looking at a program that's been instituted around the country, coming out of another university, that uses lots of different non-medication ways to support ADHD. Those probably may end up coming out of the counseling department, as ours are medication management services.
Commissioner Webb?
So obviously with this new position, you're offering all these new services. And I see that you talked about all of your non-billable services. So it says you had around 3,300. Has that affected your additional revenue with all these different services that you're offering, since they probably are more expensive, but I'm assuming you're still charging the same base fee even for non-billable students?
We have decided to continue our base fee at this time. I'm not sure how much you all know about when the public health emergency ends in the middle of May. There is also the chance for millions of Americans to lose their Medicaid funding. And in anticipation of that, we know some students may become more self-paying instead of being covered by those federal monies. So we have decided to keep our office visits low. The non-billable things that we do, some of the COVID functions that we performed were non-billable by us, but we did get support from federal money for COVID. So we're trying to find that very fine line between going too expensive for self-paying students versus being able to use insurance benefits. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Commissioner Lesnick?
Yes, I kind of have a question about your insurance utilization, and I just wanted to ask how many insurance providers do you accept? And also, it does say that you guys have reduced to 37.5% responsibility for students, but what are the efforts to continue reducing that number? Because it is still pretty high when you can find a provider that fits into your health insurance outside of campus.
Sure. That number is pretty well in the median for most healthcare facilities in college health. We accept all insurances. We will file all insurances. We just might not be in network with some insurance plans. Right now, we are in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield, the United Healthcare Student Resources Plan, Aetna, Cigna. We're still waiting to hear back on our contracts. There is a fine, it's a hard process to get some of these contracts approved by both these major insurance companies and through our general counsel's office. So we are working through that process to become in network with more policies. However, the one thing that to remember, and is difficult if you're not aware of a lot of insurance functions, is that a lot of these plans that people have may be high deductible plans. And so we want to make sure, again, that we keep those costs low for those students who have high deductible plans. They probably may not want to file those insurances. So we file all insurance, regardless if we're in network or not. It just might be a student has more of a out-of-pocket expense because they haven't met their deductible yet for the year, or because they have a high deductible plan.
Are there any further questions? Commissioner Moore.
Just looking for clarification on page 13, letter D. You explained that you had unexpected increases in charges for international students. Could I get some more clarification on what sort of charges were made?
Gabriel. So I had anticipated the question about the reserves and our charges for treatment, so I have this paper to help clarify some of that. So when COVID-19 was at its highest and travel restrictions were in effect, there was a backlog of visa approvals for international students to come to the United States to continue their education. So what we saw for the fall of 2021 and spring January 2022 was an influx of international students 2 to 3 times more than we had ever had before. This increased our charges for treatment quite a bit, actually, because not only do we see them for their onboarding tuberculosis testing, but we also saw them for healthcare initiatives. So that increase in our funding has created somewhat of a reserve balance that we were not used to. But then in that document, I also described some of the reasons why we had to have a healthy reserve. So with that, would you like me to go through this document, or is that necessary? Yes? Okay. So one of the reasons why we had such a healthy reserves was because of those unexpected expenses from the influx of international students and because students being back on campus with the higher enrollment numbers. We also anticipated last January, after the January surge, that we needed to prepare for other surges. Despite the fact that the federal funding was supposed to have ended May 1st of last year, it did make us nervous to go through the summer and then fall not having some sort of financial help with the COVID support that we were currently providing to the campus community. So because of that, we wanted to make sure that we did have some funds set aside to help us provide COVID testing, COVID vaccinations, and the support for the treatment of students who were experiencing symptoms. We did have quite a few open positions during the year and last year that created an additional gap in reserves, and we are now fully staffed, so there is no longer any open positions in our department. The one position that still has a portion of its funding still available will be going towards a new position in prevention services, where we are helping to partner and collaborate for the position of a health promotion marketing specialist. Increases in medical supply and medication costs was something that we knew was coming based on what we were having to deal with last year. And once again, with the federal monies were supposedly supposed to end May 1st of 2022, we wanted to make sure we had enough funds to be able to purchase medical supplies and equipment. You all have seen how prices have just skyrocketed. We are experiencing 25 to 30% increases in medications, supplies, and we are looking at the increases of salaries that we are having to look at as healthcare provider salaries have increased drastically in the community. So when it comes to that, we do not expect that to happen again. We do not expect these large numbers of international students. We do not expect really a large number of appointments to change from what we have already seen, since now everybody's been on campus. So this was just probably due more to the pandemic and our experience of needing to have those funds available in case of another surge like what happened in January 2022.
Any further questions? See none. Thank you for coming to present, and you should be good.
Thank you.
Alrighty, those were the presentations for the morning session. The committee will be in lunch recess until 1:20 p.m.